What is up, guys? My name is Matt from Magic the Greatening, and today I got a competitive deck tech for you. It's going to be Sultai Re-Animator. Okay, so when you guys voted for either this deck or Mardu Re-Animator, both got the same amount of votes. So for the first time in a really long time, I got to choose out of these two decks which one to show off, and I chose to show off Sultai Re-Animator first. A lot of the Sultai Re-Animator decks, a lot of their cards rotate out, like Ishkana, Traverse the Ulvenwald, stuff like that. But to make mine rotation proof, I made it an energy theme. So it's playing a lot of heavy units that have a lot to do with energy, a lot of hard hitters in that department. We're also playing like Razaketh, Scarab God, stuff like that. So there's a mixture of everything in here. Yeah, so before we get into it, go ahead, hit that like button, helps out a lot. Subscribe if you are new. And again, next video is going to be Mardu Re-Animator Gear Hulk. So no voting this video, unfortunately. But next video on... what is it today? Thursday, so Saturday's video, the Mardu Re-Animator, there will be 5 new choices for you guys, so go ahead and make sure you subscribe and stick around for that, but let's get into it. Let's start with the reanimation spells. We're only actually playing 2 outside of Razaketh, but here they are. 3 copies of Liliana, Death's Majesty, and 2 copies of Ever After. So Ever After does rotate out, but it's a relatively cheap card, like money-wise, real money-wise, the converted mana cost is 6. However, I just felt without this card, the deck does a lot worse, and it definitely needs a reanimation target or reanimation effect outside of Liliana. So I played 2 of it, and it's like a cool little thing with Razaketh and Ever After, that you can play Ever After. It goes to the bottom of your library. You get 2 targets. And then with Razaketh, you tutor up for it again, and then you keep reanimating 2 targets. And hopefully your opponent will see what you're doing and realize they can't beat that combo. So anyway, definitely a worthy 2 of in here. And then Liliana, you guys know how good Liliana is, especially in Re-Animator decks. Mills ourselves, puts 2/2 tokens out, which is good for like Razaketh. You can sack those tokens to Razaketh. The -3 is a reanimation thing, and the ultimate is not something we are particularly fond of. I mean, we're not usually going to get it off. We're just going to keep repeating those first 2 abilities over and over and over until Liliana's dead. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about trying to get to the ultimate at all. Just keep using those first 2 abilities and she'll get her money's worth. Trust me. So probably actually is the most expensive card in the deck outside of lands. So, but she's a worthy 3 of in this deck. All right, let's go over the stuff that's going to fill our graveyard. Those were our reanimation spells. Let's go over the stuff that fills our graveyard. We're going to be playing 4 copies of Champion of Wits, 4 copies of Grapple with the Past, and 4 copies of Strategic Planning. Outside of this, your creatures, or I guess with Liliana too, she can mill stuff, but outside of this, these are our only ways we're going to get stuff into the graveyard. Champion of Wits, I'm sure you guys saw this coming. Good early blocker. Discards 2 cards, so if you get stuck with like a Razaketh in your hand or like an Aetherwind Basker or something like that, you can discard them, and then of course it can eternalize itself, or you can reanimate it again to, get it going. Grapple with the Past does rotate out. Again, it's a very cheap card. If you already have a playset of this thing, I'd be kind of surprised, but it's really good because it can help us fix lands early in the game at 2 mana at instant speed. You could fill your graveyard, get back a land or something, or it's kind of like a somewhat of a reanimation thing because A, you're filling your graveyard, but then B, you can get like a creature back that they just killed and then replay it. It's something, but it mostly in there to fill our graveyard. And remember, it says then you may return a creature or land, so you don't have to. It could just be a 2 mana mill 3. But most of the times you will be returning a creature or land to your hand. And then the strategic planning. Again, you guys probably saw this coming. Really good turn 2 play here. It's really nice to have a turn 1 like a Tune, turn 2 a strategic, turn 3 Champion of Wits. That's how we keep our, sufficiently keep our plan going. So strategic planning. Strategic planning, again, helps us fix our next turn. Put stuff in the grave. Just an overall really good value card in the deck and is relatively cheap. All right, let's just go over the last of the non-creature spells here. I already touched on Attune with Ether, but we're going to be playing 4 copies of Attune with Ether and 3 copies of Yahenni's Expertise. So Attune, again, I told you we're having like a slight energy theme in the deck, so this is a good way to kind of get the ball rolling with our energy. Fixes lands. We're playing a lot of triple green, triple black cards, so kind of need to fix our land. That's why we're playing a whole bunch of expensive dual lands as well, but Attune can definitely help with that. A good turn 1 play for sure. And yeah, just fixes mana, gets energy. You guys know how good Attune is. And then Yahenni's Expertise is our sweeper. You could play Bontu's Last Reckoning here. The problem I have with that card is the land's not untapping. That is really, really bad sometimes for us. We're playing a lot of heavy hitters. We're playing a lot of high mana things. So if you Bontu's Last Reckoning into, like, say, a Liliana, you're completely tapped out for the next 2 turns, which can be really, really bad. So I felt like Yahenni's was better. And plus, if they're getting huge creatures on the board, we have a lot of ways, to clear out creatures with our own creatures. We'll go over that here in a few minutes. So I felt like the Yahenni's Expertise was kind of just for like the early game aggro cards, blue-white monument, stuff like that. Always could sideboard it out if you don't need it. Also, you may cast a card with converted mana cost 3 or less is really good on it. You can cast Champion of Wits, Grapple, Strategic Planning. Those are kind of the only real targets. And Attune, I guess. But yeah, I felt like we needed a sweeper, and Yahenni's, I think, had a slight edge over Bontu's Last Reckoning in this deck. I'm sorry if I sound sick, or if I'm like stumbling. I think I am getting sick. But anyway, let's move to the creatures. We already talked about Champion of Wits, and I think we should just go through them here, just from top to bottom. So no particular order. I'm just going to read them down from the list I have here. We're going to be playing 1 copy of Aether Squall Ancient, 2 copies of Aetherwind Basker, and 1 copy of Arborback Stomper. Okay, so Aether Squall Ancient, again, a huge flyer, gets us energy every turn, can bounce stuff, or bounce our everything else back to people's hands, which isn't terribly necessarily good. It's kind of like a silver bullet. Like, sometimes you need this card, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you just need a huge 6 mana, or 7 mana, 6/6 flyer that gets you energy. Kind of just the one of silver bullet in the deck. The 2 Aetherwind Basker, probably one of the best reanimation targets. Again, it's a 7 mana, 7/7 trample. Whenever Aetherwind Basker enters the battlefield or attacks, you get energy for each creature you control. Usually not going to be terribly overpowered. You might get 2 or 3 energy, or maybe even just the 1 from Aetherwind Basker. But if you untap with this thing and your opponents didn't kill it, it can get through with a lot of trample damage and just end the game, because it can get ridiculously big if you have like 5, 6, 7, 8 energy stored up. So definitely had the 2 of them here. And then the 1 Arborback Stomper, again, is like a silver bullet. We're actually playing 1 more in the sideboard because this card is ridiculously good against aggro. Puts out a huge blocker they can hardly deal with. The only thing that kills it is Collected Defiance and Cut to Ribbons, but Cut to Ribbons is not being played in mono red, and Collected Defiance rotates out in like a month. So definitely a really good card against aggro. Unfortunately, can't stop Hazoret. It can't just block Hazoret successfully. It won't kill Hazoret, and it won't successfully block it, which is a problem. But you need something to gain you life in this deck just because. I mean, and if you need the effect over and over, you can chump with it, like against a Hazard, reanimate it, get 5 more life, buy yourself a whole bunch of time to find an answer. So, Arborback Stomper, definitely a worthy 1 of in the deck. All right, we're playing a whole bunch of like 1s and 2 ofs in the deck, but let's start moving on here. We're going to be playing 2 copies of Demon of Dark Schemes, 3 copies of Noxious Gearhulk, and 2 copies of Razaketh the Foul-Blooded. Demon of Dark Schemes is another sweeper, except it's in a creature. And then this is kind of another reanimation thing. I should have touched on this earlier because we can reanimate stuff, not only our stuff, but our opponent's stuff as well. So it says when Demon of Dark Schemes enters the battlefield, all other creatures get -2/-2 until end of turn. Whenever another creature dies, you get an energy. Then you can pay 2 a black and 4 other energy to put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control tapped. This is really good if somehow you deal with like a Hazret or a Ronos or any other god, really. Or the Hour of Devastation gods, because they'll go to the graveyard and they'll return at end step. But if you reanimate it before the end step, you get it because it's in their graveyard. It's technically not back in their hand. So that's a really good way with dealing with gods. You just turn them to your side with Demon of Dark Schemes. I definitely wanted to play a 2 of in this. Like a huge reason I wanted to play Energy in this reanimation list, because you can keep reanimating this, and if they keep trying to put out small guys and trying to run you over, you put this out, they may kill it, you reanimate it, you sweep the board again. Just really good. Also gets you a ton of energy. Definitely worthy of a 2 of. And then the 3 Noxious Gearhulk is a really good kind of bounce from behind. Arborback Stomper, again, gains its life when it enters, but this can kill, like, even one of our own things. It can kill, like, a huge Aetherwind Basker if we feel like that's not going to help us. We can kill our own things, gain a ton of life, or you can kill, like, one of their, like, Glory Bringers. You know, you guys know how good Noxious Gearhulk is. It's a 3 of in this deck, because I felt like removal on a body that gains you life and puts out a 5/4 menace is just too good to not be playing 3 of in the deck. And then the 2 Razaketh. This is really, really good. If you can get this out, either hardcast or reanimate, the game should be over. It's, first of all, it's just an 8/8 flying trample. Okay, that's just really good in itself. The only things that kill it are, like, murder and unlicensed disintegration, actual hard removal. But then his tutor effect at first seems underwhelming when you're looking at it, because you're like, oh, what deck does this fit in? But this deck, it fits really well in this deck. So it's pay 2 life, sacrifice another creature. You can't sacrifice Razaketh. It has to be another creature. Search your library for a card and put that card into your hand, then shuffle your library. I touched on this earlier, but this goes quote-unquote infinite with Ever After. You play Ever After, it resolves, it goes to the bottom of your library. You put 2 creatures out from your graveyard. You sacrifice one of them, pay 2 life, get Ever After back to your hand, play it again, and you do that as many times as you can, as long as you have the mana. Definitely something, if your opponents can't exile Razaketh, then they're screwed, because it's just going to keep getting back Ever Afters or anything in your deck, or like a Silver Bullet that we have here, or that you put something in the sideboard, anything like that. Razaketh fetches it up and just destroys your opponent. Like a tutor on a creature is just insanely strong. Definitely only worth a 2 of in this deck, because I didn't want to like have too many high drop creatures, because they could fill up our hand and kind of screw us over. So only a 2 of this one. And we're playing 2 other creatures, so let's get into that. Our last 2 creatures in the deck are both 1/ofs. 1 of Scarab God, 1 of Verdurous Gearhulk. Scarab God is another like reanimation thing. It's kind of a bad reanimation thing in this deck. We like our things coming out with their actual stats. It's good getting back Champion of Wits, however. That's kind of strong. I guess it could be good getting like an Aether Skull Ancient or something like that, because that has just a good overall like effect. Or Arborback Stomper or something like that. But I just felt like it was a worthy 1 of in the deck. If you can like reanimate it, then you have another reanimation thing. And I know it's not terribly, terribly good, because everything comes back as a 4/4, but it is a reanimation target. So if you do need a Razaketh or Demon or another Champion of Wits or something like that, Scarab God can help you do that. And then Verdurous Gearhulk actually is a good target for Scarab God, but the 1 of kind of Silver Bullet again. A 5 mana 4/4. When it enters, you put 4 1/1/1 counters among any number of target creatures you control. Just spread the love around. You could plop all those counters on an Aetherwind Basker, on an Aether Skull Ancient, on like a Noxious Gearhulk, and just make those huge. You know, it's hard to kill 10/10 Aether Skull Ancient, or an 11/11 Trample Aetherwind Basker, or a 9/8 Noxious Gearhulk, or if you even put it on a Razaketh, a 12/12 Flying Trample. So definitely something that if it gets in your graveyard and you're looking to finish the game this turn and not let your opponent try to get back into it, Verdurous Gearhulk can be a really good reanimation target if you're trying to push those final points of damage. So definitely another 1 of worthy inclusion here. All right, let's go over the lands. And again, I want to apologize, because I feel like I've been stumbling all over this video. So I want to apologize, but let's go over the lands. We're only playing 23. And the reason is we have like a Tune, we have Grapple of the Past, Strategic Planning, Champion of Wits, stuff like that. So we could dig for our lands. But anyway, we're playing 4 Blooming Marsh, 4 Botanical Sanctum, 4 Fetid Pools, 4 Forest, 3 Island, 4 Swamp. I wanted some basics in here for a Tune with Ether. Also, like, untapped lands can be really, really useful, but we do need the dual lands just because we need them. So yeah, that is the entire main board. It will cost you like $155. Only 2 cards are going to rotate out, and those combined cost like $1.50, so it shouldn't be too much of a pain. But anyway, let's move to the sideboard. Alright, sideboard consists of 1 more Arborback Stomper, because I told you we would be running another one of those, good against aggro. 3 Dissenter's Deliverance against God Pharaoh Gift decks, blue-white, Monument, stuff like that. 4 Fatal Push against aggro. 4 Grasp of Darkness. I know this card rotates out, but it's so good against Hazoret, and if you're playing at F&M and you're just running into a whole bunch of Raminap Red, Raminap Red's not going to be a thing, because a lot of the good cards kind of rotate out some of those early 1-drops, but yeah, Grasp of Darkness can help take care of gods, and that is something we have to worry about. And 3 Negate against Control. We do need something against Control, because we're playing a whole bunch of high mana stuff. When they counter our things, it feels terrible. So definitely had to play 3 Negate in the sideboard. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Go ahead, hit that like button if you like the deck tech or the video. Subscribe if you are new. And I will see you on Saturday's video, Mardu Re-Animator.